The other things, some of the other questions that we've been asked about Malaysia most recently is how's Malaysia been dealing with COVID and the shutdown? And Malaysia's done extremely well with all of that. We're now down to zero cases. So we have no new cases appearing on certainly not Penang, on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. And I think in Malaysia, just to correct myself there, I think in Malaysia we actually had one new case in the whole of Malaysia yesterday. So the big difference with the way Malaysia handled it compared to the other countries that I saw was that we shut down literally straight away. And literally we weren't even allowed to go dog walking or anything else. We were confined to our houses or our apartments. The Malaysian authorities were very, very strict about that, and I think they did the right thing from the word go. Malaysia has now opened up in its entirety, so we can now travel within Malaysia itself, which is kind of cool. You know, all the restaurants have opened, all the cafes have opened, and they've been open now for a few weeks, and we've still seen zero spikes. You know, no reoccurrences of anything. So that's also a very positive thing too. So we actually dealt with that whole issue very well, and I think it'll come back in spades as the months continue to go on. The great thing about Malaysia opening up is that even though if you travel outside Malaysia, there's now a problem getting back into Malaysia, because Malaysia is still not accepting a lot of foreigners, from foreign countries, but that's about to be lifted in the next couple of weeks. But the great thing about traveling inside Malaysia is that we can now go to some of the islands that we have near us. We're going to Langkawi Island, I think, in about 2 weeks' time, just to have a bit of a break. So Malaysia's well and truly started to open up, which has been the result of closing down initially when COVID started, which a lot of countries refused to do. So that's all really good. I mentioned on a video that I sent through a couple of weeks ago that a lot of the businesses, the cafes, the restaurants, some of the larger hotels have all gone out of business over the ensuing last 6 months. And what it's done is taken us back to a Malaysia that I used to know when I first moved there. So in 2010. Well, certainly that's the way it feels to me. It feels like we've actually gone back in time a little bit, which is kind of exciting in one way, but very sad on another, that we went through that whole building phase from 2010 to 2015, and now all of those those cafes, restaurants, and hotels have gone. So that's a bit sad. And of course, I'm sure we're about to see that across the board when the world starts to open up and really takes to court what's happened during that time. So Malaysia's in a pretty good place. The beaches are back to being pretty crowded, although people are still social distancing. The beaches were pretty crowded this last coming weekend. Even on the little beach that was just below us, there were about 100 or so people spread out. And of course, the other big difference about Southeast Asia is that Southeast Asia has always been a mask wearing society. So even in times of non-COVID, you would see people going on aeroplanes and buses and trains and tubes, the underground, wearing masks. So they've always been very aware of that. And it's not particularly a weird phenomena to living in Southeast Asia. So when we go out, and I still wear a mask when I go out now, if I'm going to a public place where there's going to be a lot of people, I don't feel weird doing it. And I think that's a mindset that the West has to get its head around. If you don't want COVID to spread, you have to wear the mask when you go out. So don't be afraid to wear it, guys, because it really does. It not only protects you, but it protects the people that are around you, and that's the way you should be seeing that. So from a Malaysian standpoint, it's all pretty good. We're not running into issues that we haven't seen before. We're not running into any spikes since we've opened up. So fingers crossed that's the way this is going to continue to go. From a Southeast Asian perspective, because Malaysia hasn't opened up to the rest of the world as of yet, we haven't been allowed to travel, but we're being told that that's going to happen in September. And I think that's I don't know whether I'm going to be brave enough, to be honest with you guys, to actually start traveling as soon as the world opens up. I might leave it for a few months before I do that, just to see, kind of what takes place everywhere else in the world. And it was quite funny. I was talking to a friend of mine in Northern Ireland yesterday, and she was saying that the UK is actually opening up this weekend. They're opening everything, cafes, restaurants, the whole thing. And they've been told that by September, everything's going to be back to normal. And interestingly, their mindset, because they obviously don't get a lot of sunshine in the UK, their mindset is that they're just going to go traveling. As soon as September comes around, they're going to be off to Spain and to Portugal and to Italy because they want the sunshine. And it's funny, when you come from a country like Malaysia, where the weather is fantastic all year round, very Florida-esque, we don't have the same hunger to get to the sun, if any, because we have it all the time, I guess. So we're a little bit more cautious with regards to traveling after COVID. And even my North American friends, Canadians and Americans, who obviously have family back home, even those guys aren't that keen to travel back to the US at this moment in time, or Canada, for that matter, at this moment in time. They really just want to wait it out, see how the world unfolds, and then kind of go from there. From a productive point of view, guys, I don't know whether you guys know, but I'm also an author. I've written books about Malaysia, and I've written books about Penang. The shutdown for me was actually fantastic because I work from home in my office anyway. And what's really interesting about Malaysia opening up is that I'm starting to see trepidation and a little bit of nervousness from my friends who are actually having to go back to work and step outside their homes, and with their kids who have to go back into school after being homeschooled. Well, not homeschooled because they were getting lessons online, but you know what I mean. They were stuck at home. There's a lot of I guess anticipation to see how all that works. And even them, I was talking to some of the kids the other day who were based in Penang and are about to go back to school. They're not that excited about it. They actually liked, being able to catch up on the internet through various mediums like, Facebook Live and Zoom and etc. So it'll be interesting to see how the schools and the businesses deal with, employees that go back. And yet on the flip side of that, I was talking to a buddy of mine who works in Penang, but he works for Intel. He's an American guy who works for Intel. They've been told that they're not going back to work, for at least until December. And he's quite happy, kind of sitting at home and just working from there. So there's this shutdown, which we've never seen the likes of before, has really caused a lot of interest worldwide with industry and how people perceive themselves and perceive themselves going back into a world that's about to open. So I guess it really is a case of, watch this space and see how everything unfolds. Personally, personally, it's taken its toll on a lot of our friends. I think they've found it very hard, the isolation very hard, and they're actually looking forward to everything opening up. My concern about Southeast Asia is that they handled it well the first time, and I think if there is a second wave that reemerges, I think they'll handle it just as well. And one thing to be wary about, guys, if you are going to travel to Malaysia, to Singapore, Vietnam, or Laos, keep in mind that when COVID came around, and Hong Kong, keep in mind that when COVID hit, these countries shut their borders instantly, and anyone who was caught there were caught there for the entirety of that time. And I've mentioned a couple that we met on the beach recently. There are a couple from the Ukraine, and they've got 2 kids, and they were actually traveling through Malaysia when Malaysia shut its borders and said, that's it, no one's leaving and we're not letting anyone in. So those guys have been blissfully stuck in Penang on our beach in a house that they rented there for the past 4 months. And even then, I was talking to those guys yesterday. They're not looking forward to going back, and they actually don't know if they'll try and stay in Malaysia if they can. But it's it's something to be aware of if you are traveling. If you're going to travel, once everything opens up, be prepared to be stuck in those countries just in case if everything closes down. Between you and I, Malaysia's a pretty good country to get stuck in if you're going to be stuck anywhere. So if you're thinking about coming to visit, I'd come. I'd come visit and see what Malaysia has to offer. All right, guys, I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you for listening in the way you did. I really appreciate it. Stay safe wherever you are, North America, Europe. Stay safe, guys. Wear your masks when you can. I know you hear all this. I'm sounding like your mother, but I genuinely mean it. And drop me an email if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to answer them.